I'm hearing more and more from viewers that they are getting tired of DC Comics and Marvel Comics. I think it's a number of factors. I think the amount of Batman is really affecting DC readers. I think the amount of mantle swaps that are going around. I think the amount of low talent creators is really hurting people. But there's another thing going on, and I think it's the lack of continuity or stakes in either Marvel or DC, because it seems like nothing is cohesive anymore. If something happens to Captain America, it doesn't matter because there's a Captain America somewhere else. And here talking to you about that are my good friends, Jesse Blaze Snyder, an entertainment entity unto himself. He's the voice of Pizza Hut, the Food Network star. He's what else? You're a reality TV star, musician. Is there anything you don't do, Jesse?
Windows.
All the things I don't do, I guess.
Yeah. Probably a hand model. Are you a hand model?
I am now.
We got Jesse. We've also got one of the writers from season 4 of Young Justice, the man behind Darkwing Duck, Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
Doing well. Glad to be back.
That the continuity situation in Marvel and DC has become untenable. You know, as a fan, when I got into writing comics, and like my whole motivation was that a lot of the editors clearly weren't reading all the books, so they didn't really understand what was going on at the company across the board. And I said, you know, if I can, as a fan, keep up on what's going on and come in there as a writer to be able to tie these things together and give a more cohesive, you know, universe when I'm writing, that would be worth its weight in gold. You know, as a fan, at least, I wanted to see somebody with that when they were working. And now, like, looking at the books, and you know, I pay attention even when I'm not reading, because I might want to pitch something, or I might want to, you know, try to write some book. And I've gotten to a point where I've just been like, screw this, I just don't care. It's so diluted. You've got this multiverse and everything's being sort of erased and recapitulated over and over and over again. I've just kind of lost track, because I think it's become impossible to keep track, and it's diluted my desire to, you know, for there to be a through line and something that matters, and to, like, you know, grab it and pull it all together. Like, I don't know what all belongs together anymore. And I think I give up.
You know, one of the interesting things he kind of brings up there, Aaron Sparrow, is we know we have the death of the Justice League coming up in Justice League 75. It's going to be building up to this big event that we got kind of around the corner. You and I both know they're not going to kill off Batman. Sure, he's going to be dead in Justice League, but he's still going to be alive in Batman. Why should I invest in the event or take it seriously when I know the ramifications are going to be constrained to that one title? At least
you can't take it seriously. It's another stunt. You know, when they did the death of Superman, that had meaning because they had never really done that before, and it was a big deal, and it got mainstream attention. The death of the Justice League is getting no mainstream attention. Nobody cares. You know, you're not pulling in any new readers. You might pull back a couple of lapsed readers just to read the story, but they're not going to stick around. They're not going to stick around for the whole thing. So all of these
trying to sell variant covers to the same.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, to the same buyers. And that we know that can only last so long. Most of these comics that are being sold, I don't even think they're being read. You know, I think that a lot of the things that are being sold now, especially all these variant covers, they just get put in a plastic bag and they get put away, and that's it. And I think that's why DC feels that they can get away with these low tier writers, you know, getting people who are not that talented and who don't have anything interesting to say, you know, because nobody reads the stories anyway. The only people that are buying the books are the ones who are packaging them up and putting them away.
Variant covers are a great example, because you know, like, or a great metaphor for the whole thing, because that's one of those situations where they just hit the more button. Oh, you know, we sold. Okay, how about more? Okay, you know what would be good? More. Oh, we killed a character. We sold more books. Let's do that some more. All right, we changed their costume. We sold more books. Let's do that some more. I mean, it's this you know, diminishing returns. You know, you can keep going back to that same well over and over again, but it all loses its meaning. There's sort of a thing going on where stories can be repeated because there's no building continuity. So it used to be that the new story is being built off the previous story, which was built off the previous story. So it takes a while for the system to sort of repeat itself, because it's constantly ebbing and flowing from the previous story. Now, when you do this multiverse thing, everybody can essentially tell the same story over and over again at any time, because it doesn't matter. It's all new continuity, new thing. We got to reestablish the origin story for Black Superman, reestablish the origin story for gay Superman, so I'm going to get like a million origin stories every time we reboot the movies, and I mean, Marvel saw that as they were doing Spider-Man. They didn't even bother to give us Spider-Man's origin anymore, because at least they were recognizing, all right, we're hitting the more button too many times.
DC, I think, is the worst offender of a lot of these things right now. We had City of Bane from Tom King. Gotham gets taken over, and Batman has to reclaim the city. Then we had Joker War, only a few months later, from James Tynion. Gotham gets taken over. Batman has to retake the city. And then the last story Tynion writes before he leaves is Fear State, which is Gotham gets taken over. And Batman has to take a city back. That was the same story 3 times within like 18 months. It was absolutely ridiculous. And then the same thing here, Aaron. We have this Death of the Justice League and Justice League Incarnate. They just rewrote all of DC continuity since 1985 to where the Great Darkness has been the power behind all the crises and events. And they even rewrote, kind of like Kingdom Come, which was an Elseworld story, but they, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Final Crisis, and all that. It's all about the Great Darkness. They literally just did this with Scott Snyder with Perpetua for Dark Knight's Death Metal. It's like, that's less than 18 months ago. The cycle has gotten so fast, and they can just repeatedly tell the same stories, because I think you're right. I don't think many people are actually reading the comic books, and they aren't listening to the ones that do anyway. No,
because they're so few now. It's just such a small number of people that are even reading, but are still buying no matter how dissatisfied they are. There's a bottom that you're going to hit where people will still, I've always collected Batman, so I'm still going to collect Batman no matter how miserable Batman is. Look, if people wrote out the Tom King Batman, they can write out anything. Okay, they will just buy it and hold their nose and put it in a plastic bag and stick it in their collection until it comes back. Hopefully, comes back around again.
That's the crazy thing, though. If I could just interject for 1 second, that they're pushing. They realize that there are people out there who are just buying every appearance of Batman or every appearance of Wolverine, and they are like going, "Well, let's take all the money they'll give us." And that's just like, how do you do that to press just a tiny little piece of your audience, forsaking the rest of the audience?
Well, also, you're taxing a certain customer for liking your character too much. Yeah. Eventually, people don't like to be taxed. On the Marvel side, they have taken a similar but different approach to what DC are doing. They're just rehashing the same storylines or even using the same names. Within the last year, we've gotten a Clone Saga for Miles Morales. We've had a World War She-Hulk, obviously World War Hulk, but for She-Hulk. We had a revamp of Heroes Reborn. We just had the Phoenix Tournament, obviously a replay of the Phoenix Saga. And they're so bereft of new ideas, new characters, new ideas that are working, that they're just continuously going back to the same bag of tricks. We just had a retelling of Kraven the Hunter on Marvel. It's everything's just getting diluted. There's nothing special about anything anymore.
What does that do when you say the Clone Saga and now somebody has to go, which one? The one from Ultimate Marvel, the one from back in the day, or the one that
the original one, the one that sucked, the one from Ultimate, or the one for Miles Morales?
Yeah, exactly. Don't they see how that dilutes the pot?
No, I think they're just trading on nostalgia at this point, because that's all they have to trade on.
Does it do anything though?
Well, yeah, the name gets people in there, and they buy the covers, and they'll throw a J. Scott Campbell if it's a female character. If it's a male character, they're going to throw. Oh my goodness, the Alex Ross. They're going to throw an Alex Ross cover on there. If it's a DC, it's going to be a Lieber Mijo cover.
I don't need to pay money just for the cover. Like, go buy original art, or even better, buy back issues.
Why waste the trees that are compromising the story that no one's going to read if you're only trading in art that you've made rarer by making.
Well, that's the funny thing, isn't it? Is all these professionals on their Twitter that I don't even think understand what NFTs are. They just know NFTs bad, and they're all screaming about it and how it's got all this environmental impact. But you're not complaining about the company you're working for putting out 15 variant covers so that they can sell all these additional print books, which is trees getting chopped down and turned into paper. Where are your complaints about that? It's amazing to me. And this is just the redundancy of the industry. Recycling these stories and just putting out the same story over again is just the same trick as turning a character, changing a character's sexuality or any of these things that they do to boost sales, variant covers. It's all the same thing. It's just the gimmick to get people in the door, to trick them into dropping their money down. And that works for a while. But like Jesse was saying, you're just going to hit diminishing returns. And we've seen that events don't really matter anymore. Marvel has done a ton of events that just did not hit. Heroes Return? Nobody was talking about that. Yeah. These are all things that that people aren't interested in. So the death of the Justice League, it's much the same. It's just retreading ground and getting less impact from it. What do you do next after you've killed the Justice League? What's next? What's the next big thing you have to do to get people's attention? Well, I'm sure that they're going to bring in a replacement Justice League that is all these replacement heroes that they've been doing, and it's going to sell terribly. And then the next thing that they have to do is the return of the Justice League.
Return of all the people. And if they're smart, they'll stretch that out and they'll break it up into piecemeal pieces. It's funny. The thing too is working at comic stores and whatnot. I've never been susceptible to that limited edition special cover thing. But there's tons of customers who are, and a lot of the customers who are, and I don't mean to insult those who love this part of the the comics, but
everybody gets the comic book how they want to,
and they're investing all their money in it, and they're earnestly just really into it. And I just feel like they're being taken advantage of constantly, because there's a section of that market that really is just very innocent and really likes this collecting thing, and then they really get taken advantage of by so many of these initiatives with the way they'll do these limited edition covers that literally these stores have to order 1,000 copies to get one cover, and these guys are trying to seek out so they can be completionists because this is the thing that they do and they like to do. And I see them and they're sitting there with their little pocketbooks going, okay, all right, give it to me, because they need this full collection. It disheartens me.
Yeah, it's you love the character too much tax, and it's certainly being levied out by DC and Marvel. Doc used to be an X-Men completionist until they had a 1 in 1,000 for X-Men Gold #1, and it was $1,000 on day one. It drove a customer away that was literally buying every version of every X-Men comic. And I imagine there's been a lot of those, especially on Batman. You're talking, if you're a Batman fan, you're shelling out a lot of money with the amount of content they're putting out there. Obviously, there's a lot of frustration coming from the panel here. You're both have been professional comic book pros. You both have worked shops and you kind of helped out. Where are you at, Jesse? Can you stomach this, or are you going to stick around? Are you heading to the indies? Are you going to back issues?
Yeah, I think honestly I'm going to back issues, because the thing that keeps happening right now is the ever worsening stakes. We're going to do the same thing. It's just worse. It's like the bigger Death Star. It's like, last time we had the Death Star, so this time we got the bigger Death Star.
The Death Planet Star. Yeah.
Now we got 1,000 Death Stars.
Yeah. And I think I'm just kind of tapping out for the bigger Death Stars. I'm cool. I'd rather go back to the things that are happening to the characters, that are affecting the characters in deep and meaningful ways, and seeing the things that might challenge them based on what they're personally dealing with at the moment. The smaller stories that are about, the human experience, and not these huge, super duper Death Star stories, which I think have just kind of soured me to the whole thing.
The other problem is the lack of care put into these stories. It used to be, we've talked about this before, but it used to be you had group editors who were over certain families of characters. So you had your Batman group editor, Denny O'Neil. If you wanted to use Batman in Superman that month, you had to run it by the Batman group editor to make sure that it fit into continuity and that he was characterized right and that everything, kind of locked together. And that was always the appeal of these universes to the majority of collectors, is that the continuity mattered and that things all connected together. And you don't have that anymore. You've got editors who don't know what the other editor is doing. There's no communication. You've got a bunch of people in there who either aren't trained properly or weren't qualified for the job in the first place, that are just okay, well, whatever. Look at the way that the X-Men vary from book to book and how messed up that is, because you've got a weak, ineffectual leader in the X office who can't make those hard calls and can't do the job of directing his writers and working with his writers to be better and to tell better stories. It's just we're all buddies here and we're all just, telling our fanfics. And that's what's another thing that's just killing interest in comics, is that the characters don't have any continuity, either personally or, as far as their history goes. And I'm just tapping out. I don't care. I don't care about anything going on in modern comics right now.
Yeah, it's one of the bad things. If you like a shared superhero universe, You used to have Valiant as a fallback. They had their own little shared universe. It was much better. It was tighter held, in my opinion, but it's kind of fallen to crap. So you've really only got DC and Marvel there. If you're not into them, you kind of got to go to the back issues or find it somewhere else. I'm finding a lot of independent comic books I like a lot, Aaron. The other thing that I do like, and I want to give credit to Marvel for this, they're doing a lot of in-continuity throwback series to like 90s comics, where you've got this Gambit series by Chris Claremont. You got Peter David doing Symbiote Spider-Man, doing Maestro. We got J.M. DeMatteis doing this Ben Reilly Spider-Man comics where they're going back in history. Obviously, we got the Peter David Fantastic Four they just announced, where it's got that weird team that had Hulk, Spider-Man.
Yeah, the new Fantastic Four. It's the equivalent of like an extra season of that show that you really liked that got canceled years ago.
I like that Marvel's like, you know what? If you don't like our current continuity, we'll just give you these really good creators, and they'll tell you 5-issue bursts in the old continuity. I think, well, that's a good reprieve. It's a good option. But for the most part, yeah, I'm going into a lot of back issues. I'm reading a lot of classic runs because if you were to tell me that Hunted was really great by writing it for the third time, maybe I'll just go read Craven's Last Hunt and read the original because it's not going to be improved upon anyway.
Yeah, you're not gonna beat DeMatteis in telling a Craven story. You're just not. It's these things are cherished and are become these icons that we hold up as pillars of the storytelling that's taken place in comics for a reason, is because they were by people who understood their craft, who had practiced their craft and become great at it, and who cared. This wasn't just a way stop on trying to get over to writing animation or writing Netflix or whatever it is that they're in comics for, and this wasn't just something for them to have some prestige to add to their Twitter clout. These were people who cared about the characters and cared about the stories. They were fans themselves, and they wanted fans that were reading the books to really be into them and really love what they were doing and to be hooked on this stuff. And you just don't have that anymore. You just don't have people who unfortunately who care. You've just got people who are cashing a paycheck, and I think that's probably the saddest thing of all.
Well, I think the saddest thing is we've got Jesse up here, and I don't want to. You're one of the most optimistic people I've ever met in my life. To see that DC and Marvel have put you in this place where you have to make a decision like this, it's sad that you end up having to kind of lose a part of you to this stupid business when these problems don't need to exist.
It's really sad because I feel like we've lost something. There was this amazing moment in time, kind of around the same time for Marvel and DC. Marvel was doing like Dark Reign, and there was a real sense of universe and world and all the different books that you might read or be interested in. You wanted to see everything that was happening in this world. It was interesting and it was engaging, and things were sort of loosely tied together, and the universe would sort of shift and take a step forward, and all the books would move along with it to a certain degree. And DC had a similar thing where there was this multi-tier, the Teen Titans, the Adolescent Outsiders led by Nightwing, then the Justice League, then the old tier, the JSA, around when Identity Crisis came out. It was really great. There was a real sense of continuity and universe to that stuff, and it made you want to dig in and read more books and have a wider breadth of what was going on. And I just don't see that anymore. Like, I don't see a reason to get that wider breadth. The last way I'll put it is, I got my brother Shane into comic books years ago, and I literally gave him all these different books in order so that he could read it and enjoy it like the best. Like this story, and this builds off of this, and this builds onto this, and this build, and like just so much stuff. Like with DC going into Blackest Night and making sure that he read all the stuff that would like mean something in the payoffs of some of the stuff that happened in Blackest Night. But with everything building on each, itself like that, it was really satisfying for him to read that. I wouldn't care to put anything in any order that matters to me in any way of the books that have come out in the past 10 years. I don't think there's anything that's so important that I'd be like, okay, read this and then this and then this and then this. It would just be like, oh, okay, check out Donny Gates' Venom. That's cool. All right, check out this. Like you can piecemeal things, but there's not that sense of universe that used to be there.
Yeah, before you read this, you got to read this. Or you're just going to be. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
The success of the MCU is all based on that. It's all based on building and building and building. And that's why those movies made progressively more and more money. And, comics has lost that. They used to be the strength of comics, and now it's gone.
It's gone.
If you want to see just how bad it's gotten, DC Comics this week retconned every major event in Crisis since 1985. I'm not joking. You have to see this video. It's all been changed. If you love comics, it's all different now.